Now, Ukraine is clearly bleeding. The money has run dry and the bombs are still falling. 26 people have died and more than 100 others have been injured in the latest attack, with 22 people still said to be missing. And now Washington is pushing forth a desperate deal, Russian cash in exchange for Ukrainian land. And our next story gets you the details.
Ukraine woke up to fire, blood, and the smell of burning concrete. A massive Russian missile and drone barrage smashed into western cities. Streets turned into rubble fields. Survivors crawled out from shattered buildings, dazed, bleeding.
There were about 2 Shahed drones I saw. Everything here was on fire, only recently extinguished. And here, from the blast wave, everything in the apartment is damaged, all the glass shattered. A lot of damage has been done.
Over the years, you start to get used to it, but when it affects you personally, you completely rethink it and look at it differently. And you understand that this is not how it should be in life. That innocent people, what kind of strategic object is this?
And while Ukraine counts its dead, a secret plan is being pushed from Washington's back rooms to Kiev's war rooms. A 28-point blueprint, quietly drafted plan, proposes something unacceptable to Kiev. Putin keeps Donbass, Ukraine gets a cash rental fee, and the war ends with a check, not justice. The US proposal, leaked through diplomatic channels, goes even further. Kyiv would be asked to cut its army in half, surrender major defense positions, and accept a Gaza-style demilitarized zone monitored by foreign troops. Essentially, Ukraine shrinks, Russia stays, something Putin always wanted. Europe, on other hand, continues to stay relevant and urges that its voice should also be heard.
What we as Europeans have always supported is a long-lasting and just peace, and we welcome any efforts to achieve that. Of course, for any plan to work, it needs Ukrainians and Europeans on board. So this is very clear.
Today, Russia's army occupies around a fifth of the country, much of it ravaged by years of fighting. In 2022, the Kremlin annexed 4 Ukrainian regions, Donetsk, Lugansk, Zaporizhzhia and Kherson, despite not having full control over them. Russia also annexed the Crimean Peninsula from Ukraine in 2014, ceding territory in the Donetsk and Lugansk regions that Ukraine still controls could leave Ukraine vulnerable to future attack by Russia.
All right, now joining us on the broadcast, we've got Mr. Fred Weir, who is a journalist and a political commentator. Mr. Weir, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on WION. Now, I want you to weigh in on what you make of this 28-point peace plan that has been floated by the United States. You know, questions can be asked as to what the Ukrainians think, but I want you to weigh in on what the Russians, especially in the Kremlin, what Vladimir Putin think about some of the clauses of the deal which state that Russia would get de facto control of eastern Donbas region, which it still does not control, which is currently under the control of Ukrainians militarily. Ukrainians will retain the legal ownership of the land, but the Russians will have to lease it and pay a fee to somehow operate on eastern Donbas. Do you think this is a plan that would be acceptable to Vladimir Putin?
First of all, everything we think we know about this draft peace settlement is the result of leaks from Washington and whoever they've informed of it. The Russians are very tight-lipped in their response. They're playing it very close to the vest. And they say that their position has not changed since Putin and Trump discussed this in Alaska at that summit. Now, it seems to me that this is the deal that Putin and Trump had discussed. It sounds like the Russians like this proposal. And the reason that it's coming up now, I mean, because the Alaska summit was several months ago, the reason is that the battlefield situation for Ukraine has gone from bad to extremely dire. And there are signs of collapsing front lines. And Kiev itself is being rocked by a monumental corruption scandal. So this is probably the reason that Washington is putting it forward now, pressing it, because the Russians are advancing on the battlefield. And at some point, perhaps within a few months, this whole question of ceding a little bit of the Donbass to Moscow will become moot, because the Russians will occupy that land militarily. I think Trump is moving very quickly to try to cement a deal at a moment when Ukraine is weak. Russia is still not, I mean, it's still not winning in a particularly massive way. He sees the moment.
Right.
And he's probably right. If there is to be a peace deal, it's going to have to be largely on Russian terms, simply because they're winning the war. You can't reverse that with any amount of hot air over a negotiating table. So I think Trump is being very realistic. The Russians sound like they might. They say there's nothing decided. We're not
Right.
In on this yet, but they're not saying anything against it,
Right.
as they are in Kiev and Europe.
All right, interesting. Mr. Weir, you've made several important points. You've said that we still do not know the concrete terms of this deal are. This information that the Russians may end up as part of the draft of this deal, which is still under consideration. The Russians may have to pay cash to lease land that they could militarily conquer in the next few months. But the question is obviously this: considering the several phone calls that Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin have had, considering the Alaska summit that the two leaders had, the fact that the Budapest summit was called off by Donald Trump because he was not getting what he wanted from the Russian leader, do you think Vladimir Putin would go against Donald Trump in this case? And that would clearly mean a clear snub for Donald Trump. And would this peace plan, as Donald Trump is now trying to float, how do you think Vladimir Putin is even reacting to this?
You see, as I said, they're playing it very, very close to the chest. They're not telling us what their reaction is. In fact, they said, we have contacts, we're talking, but we have no direct process going on right now. So they're standing back and waiting for Trump to sell this deal in Kiev. And apparently there is a big military delegation in Kiev right now from the United States. Mm-hmm. There are other processes going on. So if Trump can sell it to Zelensky and to the Europeans, then I think the Kremlin will weigh in. Right now they're standing back and watch.
All right.
But yes, the bottom line is I think that this deal would be largely acceptable to the Russians, because it's what they've been saying all along that they want.
All right. I think you're joining us from Moscow and you've said as much as you can. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Fred Weir, for joining us and getting us those insights then.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.